Hey, beloved ones. I just wanted to come to you this week with a couple of thoughts about a text that we read this Sunday, which was the story of Jesus cleansing the temple. The story of Jesus putting cords together, fashioning a whip, going into the temple, whipping people out of it, overturning tables, throwing coins all over the place, driving out the people and the animals out of rage. Now, the story might be jarring, right? If your conception of Jesus is this meek, kind, docile sort of person, we have these pictures of Jesus holding a little baby lamb, right? Or sitting on some serene countryside somewhere, maybe like a child on his lap. And that's certainly part of who Jesus was, but that's not all of who Jesus was. Jesus got angry. Right? Jesus was a prophet of destruction and doom at times. And something about this instance at the temple got him really, really angry, to the point where he used violent force in order to address it. So what was happening there? Well, people needed to sacrifice. People needed animals to sacrifice. This was part of their traditional relationship to God. This is how one connected to God in this particular and very important way. And so people stepped in who saw an opportunity to make money. And they sold these things at a profit to the folks who needed them. And essentially turned a sacred process into an economic one, right? And Jesus saw the way in which this even created certain class distinctions and hierarchies, because the poor folks couldn't afford the cattle and the goats that were offered as the best sacrifices. They, could only do a pigeon, if that, right? And so there's this way that the economic system inscribed and sanctified a class and social hierarchy. And Jesus clearly hated this. Jesus went in and whipped people out of there. And so, if you think that Jesus is someone to imitate at least sometimes, what about this episode? Right? Is this something you're comfortable with imitating? If so, why? If not, why not? Why don't we go into banks and corporations and the places that desecrate everything sacred in our world and address them? Maybe even through physical force. Why don't we do that? Jesus provides an example. Right, but that's our world, where everything sacred is taken up into this economic system of capitalism. Everything is made a commodity, right? Water, land, housing, healthcare, right? Even air, right? Air is something that's so polluted by capitalist processes that, they sell cans of pure air because, some places are just so polluted that air itself has become a commodity, bought and sold on the market. Everything sacred is made a product. Or even being born, even life, right? Life itself is something that some folks don't have access to because they don't have the resources, right? Or death, right? Where there's some folks who can't afford to be buried, who can't even afford to die, because everything sacred has become a commodity. So how do we address this in our lives? There's certainly the internal attitude that we take towards money and wealth and finance, economics, jobs, and what these different things mean to us. It's a way that we need to clear out of our own minds, upend some tables, right, of the way that we think about wealth and status being connected to goodness and divine blessing, and understand what's actually operating in these different contexts, right? But we also need to address it in our political and economic life, right? As a society, as a culture, right? What sort of systems are we advocating for? What do we defend? What do we hope will replace these death-dealing, life-denying systems, right? Jesus' methodology was to take a whip, to overturn tables, turn people out of the sacred places, the folks who would profit off of the sacred. Now, how do we do that? Well, let's talk about it. Show up to Firelight Community. Let's have a conversation. Until then, stay blessed. Peace.